We've been a little quiet around here, Stugots, recently, even though sports fans more than ever, I think, are obsessed with the finances of sport. Mm-hmm. We've been quiet about what Tua is going to sign for. Jared Goff just got an amount of money that makes him the second highest paid quarterback in the sport after Burrow annually, over $50 million a year. The Jags, after seeing that, are said to be all in on Trevor Lawrence, wanting $50 million a year. And if Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff, whether they're system quarterbacks in the case of Goff or whether they're undetermined value in the case of Trevor Lawrence, if those two quarterbacks are going to get more than $50 million a year, and now Jeremy Fowler is reporting that Tua has missed some OTAs and is unhappy with the initial offer, Tua's going to get more money than people think he deserves. Like, Tua's going to get an amount of money that Trevor Lawrence is going to get and that Jared Goff is going to get, and people react to those contracts the same way they will react to Tua's, saying, wait a minute, should he be one of the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks annually, even though he's going to be?
Diana Rossini is reporting that Tua showed up to OTAs today, so that's a good sign, I think, for Dolphin fans. Yeah, he's better than those guys. Like last year, he had a better season than Jared Goff. He had a better season than Trevor Lawrence. He led the NFL in passing yards. His rating was 101.1. That is higher than both those quarterbacks. You have to pay the guy. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying Dolphin fans should be comfortable with him making $55 million per season. But you have to slot him in, don't you?
The stuff that becomes complicated here, I don't know how to answer that question, Stugotz, because we're still talking about a quarterback, no matter how quiet it was in this regard last year, who feels to me like more of an injury risk than the other two quarterbacks we're talking about.
But he started 17 games last year. Like, that's what we said. The biggest thing headed into next season was, could Tua stay healthy for an entire season? He did it, Dan, and he played well.
That is correct.
Yes.
But if I'd asked you this question 17 games ago, you would have said, hell no. And you would have
Correct.
said, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. And he's had a year where you're not worried about a concussion happening within a month of another concussion. But there was no quarterback in the sport that we worried more about his health and his brain health than this one. Troy Aikman left the sport because of his brain health. That's how and why he got out. And I, in a salary cap sport, cannot say to you, once you've found a quarterback who has those kinds of numbers, I can't say to you, no, you don't give that quarterback money. But I have more trouble than I ever have in a salary cap sport that has now made it so that you have to have value at that position. It's not just have greatness. You have to have greatness and value so that you could build out the rest of your roster. I have a real hard time with Jared Goff's evaluation, for example. Let's put Tua over here for a second.
All right.
Jared Goff, when he was with Jeff Fisher at the beginning of his career, truly terrible, thought he was going to be out of the league. The numbers were so bad, I didn't think he was going to learn anything. Then McVay comes in there and does with Goff what the Dolphins have done with Tua. It's the same sort of thing. Get a bunch of skill guys around him. But the Dolphins did it when they had Tua at value, when they can afford Tyreek Hill and Waddle because they've got Tua so cheap. The thing that I have trouble with in the evaluation is, and I think even the most ardent Tua supporters would agree with me on this, would he be this anywhere else? Is there another team in the sport that would pay him this way with the personnel that they have that isn't the 1 and 2 receiver that the Dolphins have, and a scheme that makes Mostert at $9 million, you only have to pay him, $9 million for 20-plus touchdowns, because you know that any running back with speed you put back there is going to get you the numbers. I have a real hard time with the assessment of value when you tell me that Carson Wentz was once the highest paid quarterback in that sport not that long ago, and that Jared Goff is now second.
I'd like to think if you put Tua on the Lions, they're good. They have good skill position players that you would see similar type numbers. I do.
I think every quarterback that has come up for these extensions, outside of maybe Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, we've asked these questions about. Can you invest that much? We've asked it about Josh Allen.
Right.
And really, when someone has had a season like Tua, there is really zero precedent for the team not.
If Jalen Hurts
extending
gets
it.
the money, then Tua's got to get the money.
The only time a team has had a quarterback on a really affordable contract that actually did some winning, more winning than they've actually done down here in Miami, was the Browns with Baker Mayfield when they decided to part, and he had an injury-riddled season that wasn't very good, and it made that decision much easier for them. But outside of that, there is very little precedent for a team separating itself from the quarterback. Now, there is a lot of precedent for the team immediately regretting that contract and finding a way to get out from under it. The NFL salary cap is a lie.